Hello, this is a prepaid collect call from an inmate at the county jail. This call is subject to recording and monitoring. To accept charges, press 1. To refuse charges, press 2.
Hello, Mark. Oh, I'm doing pretty good. The fight goes on. Yeah, I'm glad a lot of people have been watching that video. So, jail life is really not what we expect it to be because you watch TV and you see documentaries and stuff, and it's a lot of emotion involved in there. I'm sure there's a lot going through your mind, and you're just going to have to deal with it on a day by day basis. And of course, the unknown. You don't know if you're going to go to prison. You don't know if you're going to be acquitted or if they're going to delay the trial, if you're going to be in there for a long time. There's just so many questions. But the main thing is just to keep in communication, just keep yourself busy. If you can read a book or watch some shows, strike up a conversation. Right, right. Yeah, I'm going to say a large part of it is emotional. When I went to jail, I I knew I was innocent. I wasn't concerned about any trials or anything like that, and it worked out to my advantage. But I talked to a few people who are in jail, and it's just devastating, for them. And even those who've been there several times, it's like a well-accomplished actor who goes on stage and somebody asks, "Are you nervous?" And this person could have had thousands of appearances on stage, but each one, yeah, because you don't know what's going to go on out there in the audience and you don't know what's going to happen on the stage. And the biggest thing with incarceration is just the unknown. And that's what I emphasize the most. And don't try to get all the answers because you won't. But when you do get the answers that you're looking for, relish in it. Share it with other people. Uh, take it to heart because it's something that's going to help you get through your day. Good, good. And not only should you go to the gym and just make sure that you're preparing yourself for prison. Yep, that's right. Hope for the best, expect the worst. And prison, oh my goodness, it's just not a fun place to be, and it shouldn't be. So, if you call me from prison and you're looking for sympathy, I'm not going to give you much because you committed a crime. You knew the risk. Yep. And with you, you're the exception because so many people think that the ones who should be locked up are the ones who commit the crime. They're not looking at the big picture, especially the justice system. There's times we'll have a good system or a good program or a good feature going out for us, and then bad information gets out on media or through mainstream press, and it just ruins everything. So we'll have a good program that's working, and it's just shuttered. Yeah, yeah, I would say you did do the right thing. You talked to an attorney, you spoke to medical staff,
You have 60 seconds remaining.
you talked to community leaders, so you did a good job before going to jail. And I wouldn't recommend not turning yourself in. You were lucky to get away for so many days, but when the law caught up with you, it was just more or less like, why push it out?
You have
And,
30 seconds remaining.
and plus, a lot of judges give you credit for time served. So if you get a 30-day sentence, if you were in there for 2 weeks, you're just looking at maybe 2 more weeks. But if you run, That's not a good idea. So that's not going to help you, but you are doing everything else that's good. Yeah, yeah, I'll commend you on that. I'll give you a point. Good. Well, thanks for calling, and remember, don't be a stranger. You've got a good supportive.
Thank you for using inmate call. Goodbye.
Hello, welcome to AQS Inmate Call. I am your host, Joel Wilborn, and I want to talk about two roles that I play in the dealing with incarcerated people and the supportive relationships that go with them. In one role, I am a prison advocate, and in another role, I'm a prison reformist. And those two roles go together. They can work to improve each other. They can work to make a change and make a better life for the people that are incarcerated and the people that they love on the outs. Now, the first role that I play is the prison advocate. And in this role, I talk to the people who are incarcerated and I talk to their family members and their loved ones. Forming this role is probably the most difficult of all the things that I do because these folks are stepped on and they're abused and no one really takes them seriously. And so usually I get referred people to me. And so somebody will be happy with the work I do and refer somebody. And when I'm talking to these folks, they have an expectation for me. That's fine because at least I know exactly what they're looking for. And I'll get quite a few people who were incarcerated and they feel that the sentence was too long or that they feel that the justice system cheated them. And that's to say that these folks are innocent. And as much as we want to criticize people who are locked up, not everybody in there is guilty of a crime. And some of them got convicted for a lot longer, harsher than they should have. Now, most recently, I got a referral for a young lady who was a teenager when she committed the crime. She was with an accomplice. And her accomplice, her co-defendant, was able to get out early while she's still stuck in there. And she wants a chance to be able to get out too. And these type of cases are difficult to work because a lot of the groups that's on the outside, they don't want to deal with people who are convicted. You have the Innocence Project that works with folks that were wrongly convicted and they go through and take a look at the evidence and the trial and they try to figure out what they can do to help this person get justice. But what about the people who are convicted, most likely as a child, and get a long prison sentence, just are mistreated and abused, and their voice is not heard? And that's one of the things I like to do to help reduce the prison population as a prison reformist. Let's get the people out who should not be in prison. And a long prison sentence just doesn't make any sense. One of these statistics out there is people are more likely to commit a crime at a younger age. I mean, yeah, you'll find people that are older committing crimes. And a lot of times it's like a crime of passion or they'll just get caught up in something that turned out bad. And that's not to say these people should not go to prison, but you'll see less people over the age of, let's say, 30 committing crimes. As they get older, they're less likely to commit a crime. So if a person goes to prison at 16 and gets a 40-year prison sentence, probably after about 10, 15 years, that crime spree that was motivating them is gone. There's no reason to put people in prison for long periods of time, especially the older folks. Somebody who's 40 that goes to prison shouldn't get a 30 or 40 years sentence, unless, of course, it's murder and they're obviously guilty. So younger folks are just traditionally more likely to make crimes. And what I like about dealing with human beings is they're unpredictable. You can have physics and mathematics and these things are just dead on the money. But people, it's a little different to deal with them. And one of the nice things about folks is they can change. And sometimes the circumstances are bad as they're growing up, but as they run into mentors or counselors, let's say community leaders that reach out and help them, they can change their ways and become a more productive person. And that's what I'm looking for, because I've seen a lot of people get out of prison and give back to society. And so as a prison advocate, helping this young lady is a tough task because the odds are against her. Even if I were to be successful and get her good legal representation and they were to go look at her case and say that she was in there too long and maybe like the co-defendant, she should be released. Getting out, there's certain jobs she can't hold, certain places she can't live. And so it's like a double whammy. You get out, you're excited, you're happy, you want to get back and prove to the world that you're a better person, and then you get run into all these walls. And so as a prison reformist, I want to try to get resources to help people and laws that would just you shouldn't use those. I mean, as a felon could run for president, but a felon in certain states cannot hold certain jobs. And that's not fair, especially after the person serves the sentence, the crime has been paid for and the punishment has been completed. There's no reason at all to continue that. And that's why I like the advocacy part job, is I can sit and speak for the people that are in there. I've talked to people who are tattoo artists, who are poets, who are prose writers, people who are jailhouse lawyers, and people that just want to counsel folks. And on my web channel on YouTube, you can hear interviews that I have with people, and they're giving advice and they're explaining how life is like in prison. And they're offering a service to people. They're sharing their story, hoping no one will repeat it. Now, I did have an exception. She helped introduce me to a lot of people. I interviewed these people, and these people got out, and they're doing very well. Every once in a while, I'll check in with them. There's sometimes they drop, but they pick themselves back up. Usually, it's they find somebody that shares their interest or really shows a concern for them, cares about them. But this woman, she went crazy, and I will remind her of that. I said, you did something stupid. Now here you are facing all this time back in prison again. But she can still offer some advice. She can still share her story. And maybe I can get her to do that, because we never know. One word could change a person's life. And as an advocate, I want to make sure we cover all bases. We get all the information out there. And I'm going to work with this young lady that was referred to me. And I'm going to be realistic with her. I know she's feeling down and out, and of course, she's still in contact with her co-defendant, but she feels really bad. He's out and I'm in. Maybe I can reach the same attorneys that work with him. Maybe I can get a new set of eyes on it. Maybe there's some laws that could be changed. There's a lot of options out there, and I'm going to look into every opportunity I can of reading up on the news, speaking to people, reaching out to try to help this young lady. And each success that I have motivates me and drives me further. But a failure doesn't hurt me, because it's a lesson that I learned. And I'm sharing it with somebody, because this person that I'm working with knows that I care and that I'm reaching out. And if we do everything we can and it doesn't work, it means we have to try a different approach. As the old saying goes, failure is not an option. It's not something I look forward to, but you can learn from it. And so that's what I do with the social media. I put their voice out there. There's a lot of folks on my web channel that are speaking out, and they want to become a better person. Now, as a prison reformist, I look at the things that are myths, that are the misinformation that's getting out there. And during this election year, we were taught that crime is on the rise and we need to get tougher on crime. It's not on the rise. Crime is actually dropping. And people who are illegal immigrants or legal immigrants, they're not committing most of the crime. And red states are safer than blue states. So there's a lot of things you can't factor in, and that's the human nature, because we have free spirit and we can go out and make our own choices. And sometimes they're wrong, but a lot of times they're good. And you don't really know if you're successful or not until you can see it in action. And the best way to see it in action is to talk to people. I put some videos out there about what to expect when going to jail, what to expect when going to prison, how to identify people who are quite possibly suicidal, And I put those out there because I want to give people some advice that will help them get through a bad situation. And a lot of what I do is Securus, the e-messaging service. I've really looked into that because I've been cheated out of that so many times. And so I studied it to understand what Securus is, what service that it offers to the people, and how people can get the most out of it. And so I put a series of how-to videos on Securus and JPay so that people can get an idea of how to communicate with folks other than the traditional way of visiting and telephone. And since I've been blocked from everything, I have an extra insight into the Securus and the phone and visiting and general communication to folks. What happens when you're banned from communicating? How can you get around that? And the best way is when people reach out to me, because where there's a will, there's a way. And I want to encourage that. And succeeding motivates people. And so when we have these misconceptions out there, we want to get rid of them so that people, when the option comes up to build another prison, if folks know that crime is not as bad as it's made out to be, if they know that most of the people in prison aren't in there because of drug activity, if they know that some people who commit or attempt to commit suicide, are charged for the services to help them recover and the treatment that they receive, if we know that there's prison officials who are trying to help folks, and programs like when people have gardens or beekeeping or working with canines, that these programs, if they can see what they're doing to folks, maybe one or two people succeed in these things. And that kind of stuff needs to be broadcast to folks. Building more prisons and locking folks up has never proven to be effective. In some cases, it makes things worse, like the story I did with Shane Goldsby. And I encourage you to watch his video. He says that people are going in bad and coming out badder. That's not the way we want the prison to be. These are correctional centers. They're supposed to be offering resources to folks and educating people. I think community colleges and tech schools can help people because it shows them that their talent is valuable, that they are an important part of society. So if a university professor is teaching a class in the prison on economics or maybe even criminology, this can have a great effect on a person's rehabilitation and can help reduce recidivism. We don't need to concentrate so much on locking up people who do drugs. There's really not a lot of people in there. And some states actually get a more broad definition of a violent crime. I'm all for locking people up who are violent criminals. If they're going to get out and reoffend, they need to be locked up. But how often do you hear of a person who, let's say, commits murder, goes to prison, gets out, commits murder again? Or a person who is a car thief, goes to prison for auto theft, gets out, and continues to steal cars. That's what you see in the movies with the mafia and organized crime or gang members. But the average incarcerated person is less likely to get out and reoffend. And so that's something we need to let everybody in the real world know, that drug offenders are not a big issue. Crime is not a big issue. And as people get older, they're less likely to commit a crime. So we really need to look at the people that are under 40, and we really need to talk with them and get them some counseling. What is it that's triggering this? And it can have a domino effect. You can counsel Martha, who gets out, talks to her daughter, who talks to her best friend, who talks to her father, who talks to his wife, and maybe 2 crimes have been prevented right there. But if you put these myths out there that crime is on the increase and that people are jumping the border and murdering people, and you need to break down, or you need to attack that, then we're not solving the problem. We're just creating a brand new one. I myself, there's certain people I just don't want to trust because maybe of their history. But look at your credit report. If you go through a rough time in your life and your credit score goes down, so you go out and you get a loan, pay high interest on it, but you pay it off, and then you get a promotion at work. Do you think it's fair that that credit should drag you down for a promotion, should drag you down for getting a new house or getting improvements on your car? This criminal record is like a credit report for these people. But although you can work really hard to improve your credit, the people who are released from prison, they don't have that luxury. And we need to change that. And so I would say let's do a universal violent crime thing. Instead of saying that a person who sells drugs is a violent criminal, like in some states, let's just look at it as if you cause bodily harm to another individual. Maybe every state should consider that a violent crime, but not things that don't harm anybody but could. And that's buying and selling drugs or speeding, maybe probably threatening somebody's life. These are things we need to look at and reform. And that's what I'm guiding towards. So my role as prison advocate complements my role as prison reform. We learn as a prison advocate what's going on in the prisons and what's causing the people to commit these crimes. And as a prison reformist, we learn how to prevent it from happening again by using the information we learn as a prison advocate. Now, hopefully I can get this woman's story out and you can get an idea of a teenager commit a crime. She committed this crime and she took off with her codependent. They ran from Washington down to Oregon, but they were caught. We were two teenagers. We have laws that treat teenagers different from adults, and we have laws that limit the sentencing of minors compared to adults. But as a person gets older, they're less likely to commit a crime. So if you're going to hear about a crime, maybe car prowling, hopefully in your mind you start thinking, well, this person must be under 40, because most likely you'd be right. But if you start thinking you're going to be wary of the people that are under 40 and you shouldn't pay attention to their concerns, it's just going to make things worse. And I hope you could look this up online, go to the library, talk to your friends and family, understand, just kind of look into what's real out there and what's being fed to try to, I guess, scare people, because it's really not that bad. And I know like 100 years ago, people were going to jail to get food and a place to stay, a warm place to sleep. And that's not the case now. Nobody really wants to go to jail, and we shouldn't make jail a comfortable spot. And you think that if you lock a person up for a long period of time, that's going to deter. Talk about that. See what you think. See if you're willing to support shorter sentences and less of an emphasis on older people who are arrested. Believe it or not, you can make a difference. You can help reduce crime. The only way you'll fail is if you don't do anything. Take a look at some of the interviews I have on the Oxyword on my YouTube channel and take a look, do an internet search. There's a lot of online magazines and articles, and even once in a while you'll see a documentary or a news story that gives the inside story on a person who committed a crime. Create your definition of a violent crime. And together we can make our communities safe and we can get rid of some of these prisons. We sure don't need that many of them. Well, thanks for tuning in and have yourself a fabulous day and go out and make beautiful memories for tomorrow.